During September, I decided to do a 30-day drawing challenge, the aim to draw every day. For day 1, I didn't record, but I drew this picture of a wyvern as a first attempt at something that I haven't drawn in a long time, and just kind of sat there not even knowing what to do. It didn't turn out too bad, although could definitely have been better. Day 2 drawing was of some meerkats. I pulled up a picture on Google Images and just started drawing. Again, there was no real thought process behind this. I just, picked something and went with it. The first meerkat didn't turn out too bad. The second one, I felt like the eye was a little bit off on the right hand side, but its right eye, left as we look at it. It just seemed to be at the wrong angle compared to the other one. I just went with it, just kept going. Doesn't really look much like a meerkat in my opinion. But, you just keep going, you move. Day 3 was a picture from the front cover of the No Man's Sky game. You can see me holding the case during the video. There's a picture of the helmet off the front. All in all, I don't think it turned out too bad. You can clearly see at the top though that the helmet is a little bit too flat. It doesn't follow the curve properly. And because I hadn't got the proportion down correctly from the beginning, I was having to squeeze in parts of the helmet to make it work, so things had to be altered slightly, had to be moved slightly to make it fit. Day 4 drawing was an alternate version of a character that I created, a comic book character I created many years ago. Much like how Iceman can control the power of ice and to a degree water, this one can control Earth with geomancy. Just like Iceman, it can become a fully Earth form creature as well. This is a much darker take on my original design, a bit more menacing, more spiky, with a more toothy grin going on there. It looks a lot more sinister. So day 5 was Deadpool. I'd been thinking about what to do pretty much all day. Get home, I was thinking about doing Deadpool, and I opened up my Marvel encyclopedia that I'd started reading through it a few months back, and I'd bookmarked a page, and that page turned out to be Deadpool, and this is the picture that I end up drawing. This was the first one where I used some colour. I figured that using colours would be important to make the pictures more interesting, to improve my ability at creating brighter pictures, using colours that are just more interesting, more engaging. Not everybody wants to watch or look at grayscale all the time, so I thought using colour would be important to keep things interesting as the days went on. Day 6 was Mario. This picture is taken from the box art of Super Mario Party. I'd previously tried to draw Mario many years back, and something that didn't seem to work at the time was his nose. Couldn't seem to get right back then, but I think it seemed okay this time. It seemed to work, and I feel like I got a fairly good likeness of Mario. So I'm quite pleased with how this one turned out. Day 7's picture was of Colossus from the X-Men, and this is probably my favourite picture from the whole 30 days. I thought getting the metallic effect of his skin was going to be really difficult, so I used lots of greys, as you can see. This old style of comic where you know, there's heavy inks used across the whole thing. I really like. I actually prefer more than most modern day comic styles. And the brightness of the colours, the yellow and the red, contrasting with the greys, I think it turned out really well. Day 8 is Wind Waker Link. This particular picture was taken from a magazine I had from when Wind Waker was first being released. I was looking through some of the stuff that I had and picked out this old magazine, so a Nintendo magazine that I had, and this picture was in there, and I thought, Link is the way to go. I'm a big Zelda fan, and Wind Waker was the first Zelda game that I owned, and I absolutely love it as a game. In terms of the picture, it turned out okay. Some of the greens weren't great. It definitely has a rougher finish overall, but I like it. Day 9, Sonic the Hedgehog. This is taken again from a game cover. This one was Sonic Advance, one of the best Sonic games in recent years, and that's saying something because it's quite old now, but it's a classic picture of Sonic. Trying to get some of the shading with the colours that I had to hand with the felt I had was a bit tricky at times. That's why you see a slightly more green appearance in some of the blues, but once blended, those layered colours seem to pull together and do the picture justice by the end. Day 10, everyone's favourite starter, Bulbasaur. Nothing wrong with Skull or Charmander, they're great, but Bulbasaur's always been my favourite one. This was taken from a Pokemon Go booster pack that I have. The Bulbasaur ended up being a bit too dark green wise compared to the box art, but just think it's a shiny, that'll do. Overall I think I captured the look of Bulbasaur pretty well. The only thing I can think of is just the colour wasn't quite where it should be, too dark. So day 11, one of my favourite album covers. This is Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. I really like how the black background of the cover art contrasts with the bright colours of the guitar, of the neon headband. One thing to notice is that the guitar shape is completely off. Where the left hand side of the guitar in the picture meets the body, it's a bit short and should have been extended much further than it has been. So if that was a real guitar, it would be very misshapen. But I do like using the neons here. Day 12 is a Stormcast Eternal from Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I'm a Warhammer fan, and on one of the books that I have, one of these guys is here. What I love about this image is the two black spots for eyes. I thought this was really funny because it makes him look really derpy, so I kept that for as long as I could in the picture, just because it looks so silly. So I kept it for ages before finally colouring it in, making it have a far more serious look. An issue with this picture is there's a lack of depth, a clarity on the helmet and the facial features. It's all a bit too blurred together. So day 13 I did another pencil drawing, simply because I was doing the Silver Surfer, and I didn't want to use all of the grey felts that I did the same way I did Colossus, and I thought it would probably translate quite well as a pencil drawing. Turns out I was wrong, because this picture actually had the most dislikes. In fact, it's the only one of all of the pictures to get any dislikes, and this had several. But the picture on the whole I don't think was too bad. Was it as interesting as some of the others? Maybe not. but yeah, I mean, it was okay. Certainly not my best work. But day 14, Ebenezer Scrooge from DuckTales. Now, this was an interesting picture because the pencil outline was brilliant, but there was a weird colouring issue when it came to his eyes. I didn't have any colours in my pack of felts that I could really use to match the colour from the picture I was referencing. So I just went with some blues that I had and maybe get them to blend somewhat. And despite it being odd with the pink and the blue in there, this was quite popular. People liked this one. The colours that didn't seem to work in my mind, although final product thinks okay, people seem to like the most. They enjoyed the variation. You know. So next up we have Spider-Man on day 15. This picture is taken from a calendar that I have, and it's an old school style type of Spider-Man. A couple of issues with this. If you look at his legs, I know there's meant to be a degree of foreshortening. However, if this was a real person, his body would be normal size, but he would have very stumpy legs based on the way that I've drawn them here. I mean, it's not terrible, but I think that the bottom leg in particular is a little bit off when you look at the foreshortening. Day 16, Wolverine, my favourite X-Man and possibly my favourite most favourite comic book character. You see me fail to use a ruler here to draw some straight lines for his claws. Ignore that. What I love about this blue-yellow costume, I prefer the blue-yellow over the yellow and tan, is I just like the brightness of it. Being able to use the bright blue, the bright yellow, contrast with the black. Only thing that didn't really work too well in this picture was the claws. Because I didn't get the straight lines, they're kind of wobbly, they're kind of off, but the mask turned out really well. I think I managed to capture the facial expressions enough, so I was very happy with how Wolverine turned out. Right, day 17, more album art. This one is from Thin Lizzy's Jailbreak. Jailbreak is an amazing album by Thin Lizzy. If you've not listened to it, I highly recommend that you do. This is actually from the vinyl that I own, so I had that same front of me while I was drawing the picture. It's one where, when you look at the initial pictures, the characters, the blues, the facial expressions seem to disappear, that sort of thing. It really came together near the end when the outlining was done for both the text and for the facial features. So I think I did this justice. I'm happy with this one. And here we have another X-Man, or in this case an X-Woman. We have Storm. When I was looking at some characters to do, I was actually looking at various costumes. Storm typically has a great white costume, like the classic one from the 90s cartoon, but white wouldn't translate too well onto white paper, so I managed to find one that actually had this really cool black costume with some nice hints of yellow, some brightness thrown in there. I was concerned initially with the pencil sketching, but I think once the outlining was put into place, it turned out really well. Hakuna Matata. So this picture is obviously of Timon and Pumbaa. What you won't realise with this is that in the original picture that I was referencing, Timon's head is far higher up, and I had sketched to do it that way, but that would have ended up taking his head off the page. So to make it fit, I had to slump his head forward in between Pumbaa's ears, which wasn't part of the original picture, to make his head fit in the diagram. This was very much a case of trust the process, because I didn't have a colour to match Pumbaa's skin, so I had to use layers of a couple of different colours to get that final tone. So day 20 is the Joker from Batman. Joker's a great character. I really wanted to do the animated version of it, and you know, like Jack Nicholson is great, Heath Ledger is great, but I think there was too much pressure to make those ones look like who the actors that were playing, like Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson, because portraits are very hard, and I'm not quite ready to do that yet. But I liked how this turned out. Day 21, one of the Ninja Turtles. Was always a fan of them growing up, and Raphael, who I drew for this picture, is probably my favourite one of the four of the four turtles that there are. I intentionally left the colour of the headband out of the picture until near the end, so it would keep people guessing which turtle I was doing. Aside from the one eye being a bit bigger than the other, unintentionally, it's an action pose, people tend to squint. I was really pleased with how this came out. I think it ended up being a really cool picture. Day 22 is Mushu from Mulan. This was one that I struggled with slightly, and I'm not entirely sure why, but all I know is that when compared to the reference picture, his face isn't quite there. I think he may be a bit long in the jaw, and his pose has been altered slightly to make it fit on the page. It didn't turn out too bad. I think once some of the blending took place with the colours, it sort of saved the picture somewhat. But it could be better. Okay, day 23. So I just mentioned how drawing actual people is really hard. This is an example of it. So this is taken from some artwork I saw of Kiss. The four faces were somewhat merged together, and each one had their own individual colour to make them stand out. Green for the cat, red for the demon, blue for the spaceman, and then purple for the Star Child. But if you look at Paul Stanley, the one that's on the far right hand side, I made the eyes far too far apart. You know, the lips are fine, the star was fine, but I've turned him into Sid from Ice Age. I think some of the character has been lost on the demon, so the red section. The cat and spaceman turn it pretty well, but people are hard. So next is Scooby-Doo. If I was struggling to think of a drawing for that given day, I started to think of what characters, like cartoon characters that I grew up with, that I like to watch. Scooby-Doo being one of them, and ended up being the picture I chose today. The proportions seem to turn out pretty well for Scooby. Overall, there's not much I can find to criticise about this picture. Obviously some of my lines aren't great, they're a little bit wobbly, but the colouring seemed to work fine, and I think the personality of him is there. Right, day 25, Iron Man. I'd been thinking for several days in advance of doing an Iron Man picture, but didn't feel ready at the time on those for the commitment they would take, because Iron Man, being part machine, tends to need a bit more in the way of detail to bring things together. If you look at the repulsors, it's kind of hard to get the glow effect of repulsors when you're just using felts. So I tried to emulate that with some clever cross hatching, so you could see that it was there, and to create a blend between the blue and the white of the light. Aside from his face being a bit off on the right hand side of the picture, the shape's not quite there, not bad. So day 26 is Princess Mononoke, one of my favourite Studio Ghibli films, or Ghibli, however you say it. I'm not familiar with drawing anime at all. As you can see in the picture, her face is a bit too long and has more of a squareness to it as opposed to an oval shape. Also, her leg that's coming over the wolf's back is far too thin. She's got matchsticks in relation to the rest of her body. The mask turned out really well. The cloak pretty good. The best part of this picture is the wolf, hands down. Day 27, get over here. Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. Given that Mortal Kombat 1 has just come out, I thought it'd be quite fitting to do a picture of one of my, probably my favourite Mortal Kombat character. Is it cliche to like Scorpion? Yes it is. But fire and demons are just cool. Plus, I think I just like black and yellow together. Wolverine's other favourite member, so Scorpion makes sense. This could have been better if it was more of an action pose, but I really like this picture that I got from Google. I think the blood spatters turned out really well. So day 28 is Alice in Wonderland. We're all mad down here. So this is a picture of Alice at the Mad Hatter's tea party. You can catch a glimpse of both the rabbit and the Mad Hatter to either side, but Alice obviously is the main focus. I think her face turned out quite well. Small issue with the eyes again is there's an unevenness. So the one close to us is not just slightly bigger as you expect in a picture, it's a lot bigger. So you've got some sort of squinty eye going on here. I think the teapot, the Hatter, the rabbit, even the background, because the chair had this funky design in it, all that turned out well. Criticism, Alice's eye. Day 29, another fire demon, this time in the form of Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is just cool. I wanted a picture that had lots of vibrancy to it, lots of colour to it, and so Ghost Rider ended up being the person that I picked. Trying to create light and reflection on a leather jacket when you don't have the colours to do so is quite difficult. I think I managed to do it somewhat successfully by using purple to indicate where there would be accents of light, and even some blue thrown in there too. Like the bike was okay. I think the flames turned out really well, but I forgot to do some of the outlining on the chains. And then finally we have Porky Pig, and that's all folks. I'd had this picture in mind almost like a week before the challenge was over. You know, a classic ending to signify the end of the series. The picture overall turned out well. Some issues with outlining on Porky's head that made him go a bit flat on the top, and you can see I'm using a lot of cross hatching of different shades of red to capture the essence of the transformation on the background. I had a lot of fun with this challenge. It was interesting coming up with different things to do each day, and it really forced me to think slightly more outside the box to get some ideas. Some of these pictures took approximately an hour. The first handful did not, but as they became more complex they naturally took longer, so approximately an hour for the majority of them. If you enjoyed the challenge and looking forward to seeing more pictures on the channel, let me know. Leave a comment which one your favourite was throughout the series. Leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you.